Megan from the Bomb Factory. Megan from the Bomb Factory.
Hey guys.
Hi everyone, it's Megan from the Bomb Factory. We're in the Bomb Factory right now.
Live from the Bomb Factory.
I don't know if anyone who's watching got to see that in time or if the video started later, but it'll be on the audio. I'm RJ. I'm here with Brian and Megan from the Bomb Factory, and we are excited to be here. How you guys doing?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great.
I'm wonderful. Just a wonderful day.
Yeah.
I do know.
Same.
It's been a light and fun day for all of us.
Quite.
Yeah, it has.
So okay, we are here to talk about spring 1994, and we did see some comments in the chat that maybe lead people to believe that June is part of spring 94. It is not, but that doesn't mean you should leave. You should definitely stay because we'll probably talk about that eventually. Guys, we had, by the way, last week when there was a picture posted of me at Nectar's and there were some memes created. The number one meme that I saw, the first one anyway, was me saying "guys," and apparently that is a thing that I say a lot. So thank you for bringing that to my attention, and I'm going to continue to do it. I might do it even more now because I think it, I feel like it's necessary. So thanks for Ryan and Neil for drawing my attention to that fact. I mean, we all probably have our own little thing, right?
We do. When in doubt, Ryan has a meme.
That's true.
That's very true. It's very true. Can we talk quickly? I want to just debrief about these shows that we put on last week in Burlington.
Please.
This band Reprise. It was really fantastic. I'm going to put links to the shows on Archive and the videos. They were really fun. We had Adrian, Scott, Cal, and Chris played two shows. 3/13/89 was night one, and 7/16/94 was night two, and just got like really great feedback. And these guys spent so much time preparing for these shows. Like it was incredible. And I'm really just like really proud of how it went. And we're going to do a lot more because it was really great.
Yeah, you did an amazing job organizing this, putting this idea together, conceiving of it, putting the show on. The band, you told us this going in, but listening to these shows, it was amazing how much this band shifted from night one to night two to sounding like 1989 Fish and then sounding like the zany, maniacal, insane, larger than life 1994 Fish. And that is like a very hard thing to do, to go from sounding like a bar band in a bar to sounding like an arena band or an amphitheater band, but still being in a bar and like bringing that like huge props to them for not just nailing the music and not just like nailing the flow and the set list, but also the vibe of what Fish was in those two very, very different periods.
And to do that like back to back, one night to the next, is pretty incredible.
Oh,
that band was amazing. We saw them. They played our 10-year anniversary party last summer before the last night of MSG, and the energy that they brought to the bitter end was incredible. People were freaking out. There's actually kind of an iconic photo, I'll just say it, of all of us like freaking out during the Hood Peak in that moment. And it was awesome. And I'm so excited to see them when they come to New York. I hope it's soon.
I hope so too. We are going to book more. We're in the process of booking more Reprise shows.
Nice.
We're going to do New York, Philly, Asbury, some more Burlington. It's going to be great. And these guys, like, they prepped so much and it was really great. I do want to say there's a comment here from Jason who says it feels like Megan and Brian need to flip spots. And so this is a peek behind the curtain. The reason that Brian and Megan are not in their normal spots and I'm in my normal spot is that they put you in here based on when you arrive. So Brian's always first, which means he's where Megan usually is. And then Megan's next to Brian and then I'm last. And today Brian got here after Megan. So Brian's always early and always on time. Yeah.
I was
now we
surprised.
have
I was the first one in. I was running a little behind today. I even had to wear like my teacher outfit today because I didn't have time to change. And I got on and I was like, Brian's not here? Okay. It was weird. So yeah, that's why I'm in this spot today.
I was going to text you guys all day to be like, hey, I have an appointment that ends right at 5 o'clock. But then I was like, you know what? For the first time in my life, I'm going to keep you guessing.
You were still on time.
Yeah, exactly.
Still on time. I couldn't
You were
have
still
waited.
on time. Brian's
And I
like
gotta
me. If you're on time, you're late.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's
That is
it.
the difference between us, and that's why we all get along. I just want to say real quick, Brian Tompkins, who is commenting on YouTube and watching live, he came to both nights. It was really nice to meet him in person and meet so many fans. There's a
Awesome.
guy who listens to the show, and now I'm gonna feel bad because I don't remember his first name, but he's a chef in Shelburne, Vermont, and he was so nice and said that HF Pod is like the soundtrack for his cooking all day, and that he looks forward to every episode and listens to every episode, and that he's been listening for a really long time. And I feel like we like met all the people who listen. You know what I mean?
Right.
That at shows and stuff, but then you meet people who are like, oh, I just wanted to say I've been listening for a long time, and you're like, man, there's more people out there listening to the show who we haven't met. So it's so great to hear. You know.
It's an amazing thing.
So cool.
Love all you out there, and do not ever hesitate to come up to us at shows because we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
It means so much to us.
I want to say thanks to Ari. We did a crowd control on Sirius XM Fish Radio this week where we all had a little spiel, and it was fun to do, and hopefully we'll do more of that, and hopefully Ari will come on. Apparently on the live broadcast, Ari was giving us some shit in a good way, and I haven't heard it
because what
because
was said.
I know it disappears, but I got a couple messages that he was having fun with us on the air, but then it goes away right away. So, nobody will ever
You
know.
gotta listen.
Yeah.
Gotta listen.
Gotta
Well, I think
live.
I saw the times for crowd control. I think it's on tomorrow at 10. And then I think Saturday and Sunday as well. And then you can always listen live on the app if you have the SiriusXM app. It's like on demand. I mean, you can listen there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really great. So we appreciate Ari having us, and we'll do that again. I want to say one thing about the other thing that I'm doing, which is we're doing a fundraiser for Heritage Radio Network, and we are bringing together music and food. And I just want to say, if you're going to the Sphere and you want to have a chance to win dinner for two in Vegas and 2 tickets to a show at Brooklyn Bowl, Las Vegas, even sold out shows, donate to
Wow.
HRN and potentially win dinner and tickets to a show and support a great cause. You're supporting people who we're helping learn how to tell stories about food and about advocacy and all kinds of other things. So that's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Okay. I think that's everything. Although, can I play a voicemail real quick for you guys?
Do it.
Because this is one that came in last week, but it's kind of epic. So I hope everyone's prepared. This is going to get serious. You guys ready?
I can't wait.
I hope so
I'm
too.
ready.
I hope so.
Hey, HF Pod. This is Timmy C from Denver, Colorado. Just wanted to say, I listened to your recap for 2024, which I was lucky to be in attendance for. Fantastic job. I love the enthusiasm, all 4 of you. I thought you totally nailed that, and you could have been talked about even more. So great job. Also, just wanted to share something that I assembled prior to Mexico, but I thought the event Mexico just further reaffirmed my thought that Fish should be deemed now, I believe, the greatest rock band ever. And I'm not just talking American rock band, but the greatest rock band. And I feel personally that they have surpassed the Grateful Dead by leaps and bounds. Here's my rationale. 40 years they've been playing they're entering the 41st year, and they're going strong. Original lineup, a lot of luck, but it's fucking fantastic. Never played the same show. They've overcome creative differences and addiction. They never stopped writing and playing new songs. 16 studio albums and a plethora of live shows released. Constant evolution of musical styles and jams, including revamping original staples. They've incorporated technology to create new sounds and visuals. I think they've rewritten the playbook on concert lighting. They transformed how music festivals are done, played a multiple of musical genres in each show, covered entire albums or created new albums for a single show, i.e. Halloween, incorporated Broadway productions into their New Year's Eve performances. For fuck's sake, they played 13 shows, each with a different theme at one venue and didn't repeat a song. They've made all shows available to watch and listen to. They've mastered the art of group improvisation. Some of their greatest playing is taking place 40 years into their career. They've kept ticket prices at reasonable rates. Screw you haters. Ensured and encouraged all members to be part of other bands for creativity and musical and personal growth. They've supported and cared for their community of fans. They've stayed out of the political and religious realm. And most importantly, I think, at this stage in their career, especially, they have never once become a nostalgiac, and they sure as hell are never going to. I think that is an unbelievable testament, all of that, about how fantastic this band is and how I view them as the greatest rock band ever. Anyways.
So he hit the 3-minute limit. What do we
Nailed
think?
it.
Fish, greatest rock band ever.
I don't disagree at all.
I want to hear Brian's thoughts first.
I had a, yeah, I don't want to be blasphemous, and we have a lot of people who are hanging with watching us, and I don't want us to lose them by us like going a little bit too crazy in the fluffer corner. That said, I think the best answer is just Tim made some really incredible points there that back up a very, very hot but accurate take. I think the biggest point that he made to me is I was talking with a friend about this because today is, the 15th anniversary of the Hampton return. The idea of them coming back at that point in time, to me, felt like making good on things that happened in the past that kind of like went against the vibe of who Fish was from the early days. It was kind of like, let's make right of a wrong. And I kind of figured that was the biggest goal when they came back in 2009, and they did that. And then since then they've kept going. And I think he's absolutely right. Like, the music that they're making right now, there's only one artist who I know who is making as good of music at this stage in their career as they were making at their kind of creative peak, and that's Bob Dylan. And so take that for what it is. It's like, that is a testament to them as a band that I don't really know. I don't think of any rock band that is in that position.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, for me, I think there's no question that they're one of the greatest rock bands of all time. They're my favorite. So everything that Timmy said, I was like, yeah, I totally agree with that. It's my favorite band. But, there's not a lot of people that like them in the grand scheme of like big music, which is great. We get to have them for ourselves, which is like what I love about Fish, and what I think is so cool is that not everybody is into this. But I think that was a really good argument for why they should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame like fucking yesterday.
That is fair. That is totally fair. Well, we're starting it off with some serious hot takes. So
I don't understand this
I
question.
know.
Have you not listened to Bob Dylan's rock music? I don't understand this question.
All right,
But like
this
he's
is
saying
too
he's
much.
a folk artist.
This is too
Like,
much.
We'll get
what
into
is it,
this offline with
1962?
Brian.
What do you mean? Not a rock artist? What the hell are we talking about? Jesus.
I think that Brian from Attendance Bias is purposely trying to lure you into this, Brian, and you should
He
just
is, he is.
not allow it.
Take
Okay,
the bait,
guys,
Brian. Take the bait.
I can never avoid it.
This is a almost equally ranked tour that we're about to discuss between us and the fans. So the fan vote ranked this 23rd. We ranked it 22nd. So that's pretty close. It's as close as it's been so far, I think. So let's get into spring 94. This, I just want to kick this off with a question, which is this tour more about what it represents in Phish history than the 54 shows?
The 500
Or
shows.
then the music, you know? It's a question.
Yeah. I think yeah, the answer is yes. I was thinking about this as we were listening through this tour and as we were going back and forth. I'm just kind of like going through some of my notes with regards to this. So I think like the biggest thing that comes to mind to answer that question is this tour feels like they expanded so far in August of 1993, and then they record Hoist, and Hoist is this very conscious attempt to break more into the mainstream and to kind of level up from a financial standpoint, from a creative standpoint. Like writing those songs like takes a lot of effort and recording them correctly. But this tour seems to me like a double back to 89 and 92, where things were getting really unwieldy and things were getting kind of crazy, but they were doing those like weird big tweezers and like the Antelope set and a lot of big mic screws and so on and so forth in half-filled amphitheaters. And they know that that's where they're going. They're going to continue playing there. So how do we approach this? Plus, we're trying to consciously sell this album. As a result, the tour is a lot tighter from the jump than what we had heard 8 months earlier. But then to your point, RJ, there were these very specific islands within the tour that break from that past of Phish, that tightness, that recital show feel where like we've got to fill an entire show with, the big songs plus a Fishman gimmick, plus this crowd interaction, plus this thing. Like shows suddenly become much more of how is the band feeling in that moment in time, and what is that feeling do to the music as the music takes its own shape on stage. So it's like a very pure Phish sounding tour, but for you to go back and listen to it, in most cases you're going back and listening to it because of some very some big highlights that are kind of outliers to the remainder of the tour.
Yeah. When I think about this tour, I think that this is the last year before the first massive career peak that is, fall 95 and 12/30/95. And this is the year that led to that peak. And you think about this year, 94, we have 2 more tours this year. They're both on our top 25 tours list. And you don't get to those tours without this one. And like you were saying, Brian, you have these moments like the Charlotte Bowie or the Bomb Factory Tweezer Fest, of course. They're so important to the future of Phish for the band, not just the fans, but like for the band and understanding like, oh, we can get on stage and we can play for 80 minutes uninterrupted and do what we do in band practice. And the crowd's going to love it. Like that was a big breakthrough for the band. But this tour has a ton of repetition, really tight, inspired playing, like you were saying, Brian. But most of the jamming on this tour is type 1. And it's fast, it's furious, but there's only just some moments that are like truly adventurous. And I think that's why it's not higher up on the list and why our kind of ranking and the listeners aligned.
Yeah, that's fair. And I do think like this is sort of an obvious point, but they were kind of, they've been road warriors for a long time up to this point. But to me, this tour really feels like them putting in this work of playing a somewhat similar show every night for dozens of nights, 44 shows in 55 days, which is insane. And it's not just like it's the entire country they span, I mean, it's a lot of insane travel. And I think they're like converting people, spreading the word, spreading the gospel of Phish. And it's not really that much about innovation. It's more just about like persistence, you know? They're
Yeah,
just they're going
totally.
out and doing it
Yeah.
every night, you know?
Well, and we
Yeah,
should
and they do
note
it
that,
twice
like,
this year.
right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
we
like
should
2
note, like,
full country loops.
this tour ends in late May at the festival out in California, Laguna de Sec, I think is what it's called, something like
Laguna
that.
Seca.
Laguna
Yeah.
Laguna
Seca?
Seca, my goodness. It ends there. They take like 2 weeks off, and then they play a summer tour, which is a separate tour for anyone who has joined late. Like, that is not being covered during this. Like, we're taking these as 2 very different tours. That tour kind of represents what I think a lot of people think about when they think of spring tour, where the band just
Mm.
kind of goes crazy for a month and a half, and they let just like their muse kind of guide them. This tour is much more focused, where there are moments where like the music takes them, and they kind of, you start to hear towards the back end of the tour them realizing like, we got to give in to like our inhibitions and to the craziness that is inside of us, that wants to come out and wants to come on the stage and wants to be like not held back by, okay, now we got to play Mike's Groove.
Yeah. And I want to, sorry, let me just clarify. There's a comment on Instagram that the Antelopes from 94 were some of the most out there and different jamming. I don't disagree that it's like not, that there's not amazing improv and some really envelope pushing improv, but I think the set lists are like fairly, you get like one of 3 shows. There's like Fish Show
Yeah.
1, Fish Show 2,
Yeah.
Fish Show 3, and they kind of rotate. So like, you know, set list wise, like if you went on tour, it would be a lot. It would be a lot if you went on tour because almost every show, every other show is kind of the same in terms of the set list.
Yeah,
But
well,
like we'll get into some of the
yeah.
jamming.
Yeah, they're playing so much of the Hoist. I mean, so much of it. And then they're just playing other classics too. But yeah, it's definitely repetitive to listen to it. And even the type 1 jamming though, it is incredible. I mean, the speed and the dexterity is like
Amazing.
off the charts. I mean, you listen to this stuff and you're like, they just sound lit up. It's crazy. Like, so I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying I think it ranks lower on lists because of that.
Well, and I think like, yeah, for where we have it here, like that bright, effervescent, like just explosive playing that they could do when they're just playing a standard take on a classic Fish song. That is like, this is one of the last times you're going to hear them doing that. And it's not
Yeah.
until they start to realize like, okay, when we throw away the map and we just completely go off, you know, into the unknown musically, like that's when a new magic is going to happen. Like a lot of what drew people to Fish to this point in time was like, you know, them playing an Antelope that is not necessarily type 2, but is like ferocious and fast and aggressive. Playing a Reba jam that kind of hints at weirdness, but like gets back to that really beautiful, you know, rising peak, playing a really pure, you know, straightforward version of Hood, that like the straightforward version is what gets to the emotional side of what you want musically. So no hate. This is all
Yeah.
amazing stuff. It's just, it is, there's a little bit of a formula to it that we will not hear in some of the other tours that we have ranked higher.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, but when you were going to see a show in 1994, you weren't expecting to see the Providence Bowie. Like that was like
Wasn't
an
even
outlier.
like registering.
No, you weren't going to see like deep 45-minute jams. Like you just weren't. You were going to see Fish bring some wild energy, you know, which is so different from like a lot of us came from the Grateful Dead, and that was such a different vibe. We were going to see this band that just like, you know, brought this ferocious energy to us and like felt like they were of our generation. It was just a different thing we were looking for. And who knew that they could do the Providence Bowie? Like that's fucking awesome, but like that's not necessarily what we were chasing, I would say, as people do now.
Should give a shout out here to noted folk hater attendance bias, Brian Weinstein. Love you, dude. Spring 94 Down with Disease is serious business. Machine Gun Trey at his peak. He's absolutely right. Like that is,
Yeah.
I didn't reference Down with Disease because from everything I've heard, like Disease was kind of hated at this point in its history. But when you listen back to just like even a 7-minute Down with Disease, Trey packs so much into there.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got one on my short list for jams. It's pretty fun.
Megan, what else do we need to say besides, I mean, the insane number of shows? There were 44 shows in 55 days. Is there anything else we need to talk about with regard to the tour before we kind of keep talking about the music and the details?
There's a few things in Meg's corner. We got to hit it. So
I
the few
figured
things
there
we have to
was.
talk about.
Yeah.
I always have things to say in Meg's corner. The band started the year off just taking some time off and doing a lot of side projects after they recorded Hoist the fall before. So this tour, as I mentioned, is the first of 2 full country loops they're going to do this year. They're going to do another one in the fall. We've got Hoist coming out this March, right before the tour. As you mentioned, RJ, 44 shows throughout the months of April and May. This tour is really a mixture of universities, clubs, theaters, and some really legendary, like, big Grateful Dead venues, which is exciting for them. It kicks off with like a benefit show at the Flynn in Burlington. It's going to go to Canada, upstate New York, 3 nights at the Beacon in New York, down to the Southeast, down to Florida, through the South. They've got a show at the State Palace Theater, the Cosmic Country Horns, Southwest, of course, the Bomb Factory show in Dallas, and then Southern California up to Oregon, Washington. And then they end 3 nights in San Fran at the Warfield, and then 2 nights at Laguna Seca and Monterey. And just amazing debuts on this tour too. Obviously, a lot of the Hoist stuff, but simple debuts on this tour. And the debut is just unforgettable. Wolfman's Axletude, Julius, a lot of the Hoist songs. And there are 143 entries on the jam chart for this tour.
It's
We had a lot to
unbelievable.
listen to.
It's unbelievable.
So many Son of a Mules.
So many Son of a Mules.
So many.
And
A lot of debuts.
Yeah.
I wanted to go check out some of the ratings for these shows, but alas, couldn't.
Couldn't do it.
I knew I'd get Brian on that one. That's a lot of
I'm
jam
also
chart
gonna-
entries.
It is. And I'm also going to make sure that I never come on this show before Brian anymore, because I don't want to be in the wrong corner again. I feel so bad. I'm so sorry, Jason. I'm sorry.
I love how we like revealed why, and it's because Brian's always early, the earliest.
Too early. I was born 3 weeks early. You know that? Just couldn't wait
That makes so much sense. This makes so much
Right.
sense.
quite a bit.
Megan, is there a way to talk about a theme from this tour without just saying that it's all about one show?
Yeah, I have a metaphor for you guys.
Okay, I want to hear it.
Are you ready?
I've been waiting
Okay.
for this.
Okay, so kind of like what you were saying, Brian, you think about where the band was in like summer 93, and they're like pushing out the boundaries of jams, playing type 2 jams more consistently. Got the Marat Gin in August 93. And then they take the time off to record Hoist. They do the Down With These jam on 12/31/93. And they come back for the spring tour, and they know that this is their last year in the minor leagues. They've been signed with the team. The negotiations are happening. They're determining contract terms. They're signing bonuses. Development plans are happening. They're going to play the world's biggest arena at the end of this year. They know everything's about to change for them. So, what do you do in your last year in the minors? I don't really know, but I imagine you work. You work, right? You hit all the balls. You catch all the balls you can. You steal all the bases. You talk about other baseball things, and then you do it. And that's what these guys did. And so I feel like this is the last year in the minor leagues. That's my theme.
Take me out to the ball game. Yeah, no, I think that's actually that's a really good baseball metaphor. Well done.
Thanks, Brian.
I think that is spot on. I think that this, we talked about this last year. We did an episode on Hoist, and we talked about the tracking documentary and how much you could see in there that what they were trying to do was not going to work out the way that they were trying to do it, which was to get a hit album kind of on the level of
Yeah.
Under the Table and Dreaming. Or 4, I don't know when that came out compared to this, but they were trying to make this leap that bands around them, the Spin Doctors had done this, that okay, you got this rabid following, people are trading your tapes, people are all this sort of stuff, really following you in a dedicated way. Let's capitalize on it. Let's get you on MTV. And Fish was never going to be that while being Fish. They couldn't control the clothes that they wore. They couldn't control the fact that one of their biggest appeals was playing a song like HYHU and then their drummer trying to sing a Neil Diamond song. Like there were aspects of Phish that was just never going to catch on beyond you know, the nerds who followed them. But they did kind of seem to know that making this move was going to make this sustainable for the long term. And I think there's a big argument to be made that if they had not gotten to accelerate your baseball metaphor, had they not gotten that big contract, we're not here today. You know, they needed that. They needed the financials to catch up with the ambition so that they could do anything that they wanted to do. And one of my big themes for this tour was like they realized that their vibe's catching on and they're making a real push towards sustainability and growth, but they're doing it on their terms. They are ensuring that wherever steps they take, they are bringing all the freaks along with them, and they're bringing the weirdness and the magic, and they're, you know, they're marching towards what will be one of the biggest moments of the entire year. At the end of the year, the Providence Bowie, which has no mainstream appeal whatsoever.
None.
Yeah. Yeah. But they couldn't shy away from putting Son of a Mule on Hoist, you know, or like just
That's
you know,
exactly right. What Brian's saying, like they just couldn't
Yeah.
even do it. They couldn't
They
even
just
make
go-
the
they were
album.
like-
It's just too weird.
You're like, can we just keep this on there and also have a hit album? And you're like, this is not really how it
No.
works.
Like,
Exactly.
How
No, you can't.
how did If I Could not turn into like a hit single?
Yeah.
Like because they didn't really promote it. They didn't release
Yeah.
that as the single. They released a
And
song
sample in a
called-
jar.
Right. Like they
on,
released
that was
Down with
such a
Disease,
radio
which is
hit.
like a weird song, even in its catchiness.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Man, can you imagine like the chorus of Down with Disease, which is great. It takes like 3 minutes to get there. Like if you release a song now, you have to get to the chorus within 3 seconds. You're like, are people really hanging around for 3 minutes to get to that?
It's like two bridges.
So the other thing, which, you know, not what you were saying, Meg, about like the last year of them kind of being in the minor leagues. You think about like the tragedy of Garcia dying in '95, which really, you know, that the stars aligned for them in a way that couldn't possibly have been planned. Not that they wouldn't have continued to grow exponentially, even if the Dead continued to tour, but the fact that this all coalesced around the same time, you know, that Jerry dies 8 months after their first MSG show is pretty wild. And it's like, it's just something that, you know, obviously no one was happy about it, but it's just like, it's an insane turn of events that by fall of '95, they're in a totally different place with a lot of new fans and a lot of weird stuff happening that maybe didn't happen before. But I saw my first show fall of '95 in a huge basketball arena, you know, I mean, it just, think about some of these shows that we are going to talk about. They're in pretty small places. And then the next year, you know, they're playing at the Palace of Auburn Hills. Rest in peace. You know?
I know. It's wild. And the change that happens from this year to '95 because of that, you know, they're building up their audience and their infrastructure and signing these deals and growing. But then like, so is the community around them because of that. Like it was such a huge shift. And going to shows in '94 and then going to shows in '95 was so dramatic, the difference. You know, my first show was fall '94 in a theater in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And, you know, the next time I saw them was at Deer Creek. It was just like wild. And I had just been there to see the Dead like 2 weeks before. Like it was a crazy, crazy time.
Really crazy. So Brian, you mentioned kind of the islands within the tours, not to use another Phish metaphor, not an island tour, but islands within the tour. I feel like one of my realizations about this project already is that we often think about the tour and put the tour into like a category of like, this tour was the like spring '92, you know, it was like they got out to the West Coast and kind of opened up their minds a little bit, right? Like with spring '94, there's so many more little specific moments that are little points in the tours where things shift, and none of them, you know, bigger obviously than the Bomb Factory, which I listened to most of these shows, or at least most of these 44 shows, and there's nothing else on that tour up to that point that sounds like the Bomb Factory. Like it sounds like they just came into from a different planet and stepped into the Bomb Factory. What do you think about that, Brian?
Yes, but I think that there is one moment that is not the Bomb Factory. You're absolutely right. Like that, I don't want to discount the Bomb Factory. Holy crap! Like you put that on, and it is. You can hear the next, like basically Fish from May 7th, 94 to Fish from October 7th, 2000, like flash before your eyes, like 16 different times
Mhm.
during that set. I've always been like, to me, ever since I heard this talked about on HF Pod in the winter of 2013-14, 42494 has always been a show that is very close to my heart. From Charlotte, North Carolina, you get this Gin into Jump Monk, only the second time that song has ever been played, back into Bathtub Gin midway through set 1. You get Demand to open up set 2, and then you get this 23-minute David Bowie. It is the first time that David Bowie has crossed 20 minutes since October 31st, 1989. Only other time it had crossed 20 minutes. This is one of Fish's great jamming vehicles of the mid 1990s, realizing in the moment what it can be. And the funny thing is, like, similar to what we're going to see with a bunch of the Segway Fests that are coming in June, and the Bomb Factory Tweezer, like, Fish is still learning how to do type 2 jamming at this point in time. So you're still getting like tequila teases throughout, like they're deep in a jam, and then someone's like, "Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba," and Fishman's still got to like crack a joke like midway through a deep jam.
Yeah.
But like that to me is like the moment before the Tweezer Fest where you hear like you almost like hear them unlocking the key, like the door of like,
Yeah.
how do we break out of this structure that we've like built for ourselves? It's very freeing, it's very fun. It is both formulaic in a good way where we can do it on a night to night basis, we can do it consistently, but it's also allows us exploration in a lot of different ways. But how do we unlock that and unleash like our innermost artistic ideas? Like that to me happens in that Bowie, and then it happens 2 weeks later in the Tweezer Fest.
I love that this tour is like, you can almost see in real time, like the joyful, energetic pranksters of early 90s Fish, like meeting the like super deep sea explorer, wild exploration jammers of like mid 90s Fish. It's like, oh, hello, this is how we do that. It's just like you can see them like meeting, and it's just fascinating. And that's, I think, what that Tweezer Fest is. So it's so playful, but it's also like really exploratory in a way that is just so unique.
It's pretty outrageous, and I think what we can talk more about well, maybe we should just do that now because we're moving into segment 3, representative
it.
jams. We can just take this Tweezer Fest off the table as an individual pick because we should just talk about it. But so this Tweezer, to me, it's like the 42192 Tweezer, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. In that like in the jam, it sounds unlike anything Fish has ever done. I think that's one of the main reasons why we love Tweezer because it defines these eras in many different ways. But I mean, I don't know if it was the longest jam ever up to that point, but it's close. Not like non You Enjoy Myself jams. It's like 25 or 26 minutes, right?
Yeah, the main Tweezer. You keep talking. I'm gonna grab the fish.net jamming chart and I'll confirm that for you.
But it just sounds like there's like, there's melody and there's a little bit of like there's kind of hypnotic grooving in there. They're just like there's these segments of it that sound unlike almost anything Fish has ever done up to that point. And it just feels like a switch somehow just like flipped. Even from the beginning of that show with like From the Llama, you can tell that there's like a lot more going on in that show. But to me, the Tweezer is just, man, because it's more about like the history of it is really about the Tweezer Fest, as it were, right? But like the Tweezer itself is like a monstrous, really interesting, really great jam in itself. I don't know, Megan, how you feel about that, or how do you compare the Tweezer itself to like everything else that comes after it?
Yeah, well, it's so interesting because I think that the Tweezer is alone, it would be a monumental jam. I think the fact that it's like infused into this 80-minute set that is full of incredible segues, fun covers. To me, the biggest takeaway of the Tweezer Fest is just such wild energy and intensity. And it sounds so freewheeling and fun. It just feels like they could go anywhere and do anything. And I think that is what really like is my biggest takeaway from it. It's definitely the most important moment of the tour. And it's one of the most important moments, I think, probably in all of Phish history, just because of what it taught the band too. And, the fact that this is the only show that they've released from the archive from this tour says a lot about what the band thinks about this show too, and how important it was.
I think to that, like I was listening back to this, the end of the Walkaway, which is contained in the larger Tweezer Fest, like you hear these moments of space and what the band is doing with dynamics and melody, and you realize that like there's so much more for them to explore, that like they've not just unleashed the fact that we can just play one song for basically an entire set while segueing in and out of a few other songs, but also that like when we get into this space, this is where magic happens, and this is where
Mm.
What is going to make elements of December 95 so great, and the funk reinvention of 1997, and a lot of the millennial jams that are going to happen around Big Cypress. Like it's not so much just about let's freewheel explore, but for us as musicians and us as people, and for the people who are coming to these shows, the music that is discovered within that jam is where like that's the special thing. And you hear this band like almost see, like I said, like 5-6 years into the future, playing these, the jam out of Walkway, which is like an 11 or 12-minute version of that song.
It's all pretty outrageous. It as Neil says on YouTube, Tweezer Fest is one of those tape jackets that looked so cool that you had to get it. It's true. It was like it was just it was a milestone, and apparently it had to do with tequila shots, which just reinforces the fact that tequila shots are always a good idea. There. I don't. What's your favorite part of the Tweezer Fest, Megan?
My favorite part
Of that whole set?
I think actually, I mean, I think the Tweezer Jam is amazing, but I love the part. First of all, I think Sparks is just unbelievable. I think it just explodes out of there in a way that's just so triumphant and aggressive and incredible. But I love the digital delay loop jam into Sweet Emotion. There's just such a cool kind of like effortless riding on a wave feeling to that section that I absolutely love. But of course, my most favorite is definitely the Cannonball Jam, because in 1994, I was 16, 17 years old, and I used to put this in, like, listen to this on the radio, or I had the tape actually, and I'd listen to it in my car. And, I was naughty, so I'd be like smoking cigarettes and like singing, and like it was okay for like a teenage girl to feel angry for once. Like, we're always told not to be angry as girls, and we could just like scream and be angry, and like it was just the best. And to hear Phish cover that, I remember hearing about this and then getting the tape and just losing my mind that like Phish would cover this girl band being angry. It's just a perfect moment.
Brian, what about you? That's great. Thank you, Megan.
I mean, the Walk Away is like when I listen back to it, but I do have like a really fond memory of I went to the Fenway show in 2009, and I remember walking up towards Fenway, and you started to see Phish fans again for the first time in 5 years for me, and someone was playing this Tweezer, just like blasting it with their trunk open, just like drinking beers, and like suddenly smelled like marijuana, and I was just like, oh my God. Like I knew instantly what it was, and I could see Fenway, and it suddenly smells like a Phish show again. And like everyone around me looks like a Phish show, and like feeling like we're back in a huge, huge way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was at that show. We should have hung out.
Oh, lost.
That was that rainbow, man.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. I think that like imagining being at the show and the just ending with Tweezer Reprise is just like it just gives you goosebumps, like you're ending
So
this whole
good.
thing with like a huge, I mean, it's such a great ending. The whole thing is incredible. We could do a whole episode on this show. We probably have before, actually. So maybe.
Probably should again at some point because
Yeah,
it
we
is
should.
something else. Like the first set is no
And then
slouch. It's like everything we were talking about at the start of this, where like
Yeah.
nothing in the first set is really played differently from how you know those songs, but they're all just played so well and so tight that you want to live in it.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
like opening it with llama and then dropping into horn. That's so badass. Like playing horn for the second song of the show. That's cool. Like that is really cool. And it
Yeah.
works. And also the encore, just to come out and sing Amazing Grace after that, it's just so weird and fish and like it's just funny.
It's awesome.
Can I throw out a couple additional representative jams that came?
Yes, please. Yeah. No, we have.
I think as a result of this.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So we have 2 antelopes that come within 1 week. The next one is at the Bee Cave in,
Hmm.
I think, still in Texas on 5/8. They had to play a show the night after the Bomb Factory. Can you fucking imagine?
I mean,
And
that
they
is insane.
they play this antelope in the second set that just like shreds your brain apart. Like this is not, let's just set the gear shift and go straight for the peak. This is like weaving in and out and like exploring all this different terrain. And like the antelope trips over a log and is being chased by a jaguar and like comes out in the open plain and is just like going back and forth. And like there's a giant rainstorm and like it has to hide under like a rock. And then it keeps fucking going. And like, holy crap, what an incredible antelope. And then a week later, at the Wiltern in LA, like they've played this tiny little like legit bomb factory in Dallas. They've gone all across the Southwest and now they're in freaking Los Angeles, middle of the tour. And they throw down this incredible antelope, big black furry creature from Mars sandwich that's like 20 minutes long and is totally, totally worth your time. It's unbelievable.
Can I just read you my notes from that 5/8 antelope? Because I think it speaks to what you were saying. Good God, speed. Are you okay? I was just like worried about them. Like it was so fast. I can feel the sweat pouring off of them through the Relisten app. Jesus, it's relentless, wild, run through a wall type stuff. I mean, that antelope is crazy.
It's a good, yeah. I mean, there's so many. There's so many. I want to say we got some 90s teases and jams from 5/7, but I just want to give a shout out to the 5/19 Mike song, which Trey's teasing today by the Smashing Pumpkins, which really just kind of ties everything together, like where American rock music was at the time and my love for that album and that band. And it's just like, it's interesting to hear that. It's the only time that's ever been teased that's been documented, but I'm sure they were listening to it.
Yeah, I mean, he was a big fan of what Corgan was doing in the 90s, and they covered Rhinoceros a few years later. Yeah, it is like, you're right. The Fish is on the kind of the periphery of rock at that point in time, where they're not being played on the radio, but they're definitely being influenced by what, like they're playing the same venues that those bands are.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Let's do one more.
I want to give a shout out to Standard Fish in the best way possible. We're going to get into a lot of these when we come around to cover Summer 94. Harry Hood from the Warfield on 5/27. It is so gorgeous. Mike plays, I don't know what notes they are, but he plays different notes from what he usually plays, which shapes the song's jam in a much more melancholic way than this like uplifting way. The only other version I've ever heard that reminds me of this is the Deer Creek 97 version, where he inserts like B rather than D. I don't come to me for music theory, but like he deliberately inserts a different note into the rising progression, which changes the way that the jam comes off. And this one feels very similar in that sort of standpoint, where it's achingly beautiful.
Another jam from that night that I absolutely love that is also beautiful is the Reba from 5/27 at the Warfield. You have to get over the Frank Zappa singing that Trey's doing during the Reba. Like there's a lot of like, bag it, tag it, like a lot of like really like over articulation.
Keep going,
Just
keep
like
going.
no, I'm not going to. Unnecessary. But the jam part is so dynamic. They get so quiet and really patient and really stretching things out in a way I haven't heard that very much. But it's gorgeous, and Trey is so amazing, and the build is perfection. And so if you haven't spun that Reba in a while, I would recommend.
I want to just say that, just to go with that, the kind of theme of what you were saying, Brian, and that show. I think the 420 show, around the 415, 420 is where the tour like starts to get kind of going, and there's a the whole show, the 420 show, is high energy and fun and kind of captures the moment. But the hood is really, really great and has a kind of like shimmery effect from Trey. I think up to this point, like really they weren't really putting a lot of effects on the jams in Reba and hood. It was just like straightforward building bliss peak.
Mhm.
But you hear this like Trey's kind of adding layers onto it, and it's really, really nice and a great jam. I think that's another, just like a theme that we've kind of been touching on, but their use of effects had really started to increase with this tour, like
Mm.
by the Bomb Factory, it's much more clear, especially from Trey. There's a lot more layering going on, but you start to hear it at the kind of the beginning of the tour. And I don't think in 93 they were doing it as much.
No, and that feels like a really big breakthrough, because a year from now, much of what is going to make Summer 95 so exploratory and so wild is Trey really exploring his effects. Page starting to get additional keyboards that are going to allow him to change up his sound. Effects are obviously going to become a much bigger part of Phish around 97. But you're absolutely right. Like, this is where you start to hear that for the first time. It's not so much like a show of, because one of my notes here, like what the defining sound was that we're nearing the peak of all caps tight and fast Phish. We're approaching a
Mhm.
point where tightness has been achieved and is no longer the goal. Like, they've proven that they can play faster than anyone. They've proven that they can change on a dime together, that, the insert your own hay jamming is like starting to impact the band. What do you do next? You start to add weird sounds and see how those bounce off each other and reflect, and add to the jamming going forward.
I just want to say there are an amazing number of people watching us live right now, and in our 11th year, showing us some love as we continue to talk about Phish. It's pretty great.
Yeah,
Thanks,
so
guys.
awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so let's move into the kind of the last piece here, which is defining sound. We kind of just talked about this sound, but curious. When I was listening to the early shows, especially the April shows, I was thinking, like, is this kind of a continuation of 93, or is this a breakthrough? I think halfway through the tour, it starts to sound like something different, but like the first half of the tour just feels sort of like it feels like a continuation of what we heard in 93, although there was how many months off between. I mean, there's the New Year's shows, but really touring, it had been, 8 or so months. What do you guys think? Is it a totally different sound than 93, and what else, or how would you define the sound?
Why don't you go, Meg?
I mean, I was just gonna say it's similar to what Brian was saying, that there's this real, when I think of the sound, it's really tight, fast, and energetic. But then once they break open, it's just wild and free in a way that doesn't happen as much in 93. You can see them playing with it in the summer, but it's starting to happen more consistently in certain pockets. And it's interesting because it's almost like this tour, similar to Spring 92, where once they get out into like smaller rooms or out west, they start just like opening up and cracking open a little bit more. So I definitely feel like it's you can hear 93, but it's starting to be its own thing too. It's a bridge. 94 is like a bridge year between 93 and 95, I think.
Yeah, no, we'll certainly have. I mean, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about the two other tours that happened during this year, during the series, because this is one of the best years in Phish history. And so I think you're absolutely right. It's a bridge, but it's also its own thing. And we'll talk about that when we get further along. But like, to me, the two sounds that kind of hit me as defining is, we've talked a lot about Reba, and beyond the Frank Zappa vocal stylings, like Trey just can't get a break with the way he sings with all of you. Either he's singing too high and not the way I remember it, or he's singing like Frank Zappa and I don't like it. Like, what's going on here, guys? No, I'm kidding.
So hard on
he
him.
he does not sound very cool. Like he is a nerd in a rock band is the way he sounds during this, and I love it.
Yeah.
But Reba is both expansive and it's beautiful and it's very fast, but there's also like risky moments. And like that to me is the sound of this tour. It's like moments of maniacal madness that are then reined in before getting too dark, because that's going to come later.
Yeah.
You know, and there's obviously the breakthrough with the Tweezer Fest, but like the Tweezer Fest is like, there's moments like it throughout the tour, but it almost feels like they played that and it kind of spooked them. And it wasn't until they took the break after the end of the tour around Memorial Day and then came back in June and we're like, okay, let's try to do that again. Like, let's try to figure out how to get that weird and that out there again. This tour is a little bit more, it's weird while knowing where the edge of the road is.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting. I think when we're going to, like you said, we'll talk about June 94 because there's so much. But I think there's some stuff in 94 and later parts of 94 that also is very straightforward, but very intense and hard rocking and like tension release,
Mhm.
you know?
Oh, yeah.
You don't really hear this Bomb Factory kind of approach consistently until, like you said, Brian, like summer 95.
Mhm.
Yeah, like that feel and November 94 you'll have moments of it.
Yeah,
where,
true.
like, they go 20 to 30 minutes and longer and just like blow your brain apart.
I think they should bring back the song Montana, you know?
I'm into that. That was a catchy
Ooh, yeah.
little
It's a good
ditty
tune.
there.
It was a good tune. I think I want to just like be more I don't know, I don't think this is controversial, but so Loveless by My Bloody Valentine comes out at the end of 91, right? So it's a few years later, but I think you're starting to really hear that effect on Trey in this tour. Like you can hear him, but not overtly, like where he's like really like 10 layers of guitar, but like you can hear him start to. I think he's starting to bring that in a way that really is complementing the music.
I think it really gets to, at least my interpretation is, he almost loses interest with how fast he can play. Like he knows he can hit every
Yeah.
note. He knows he can string
Yeah.
together melodies like on the dime and that they're so fast. And like you listen to some of these 94 stuff and you're just like, how does the human body play guitar that quickly? And I think one of the things is the interesting thing about this series is we're jumping around eras, and I'm a week ahead right now listening to next week's series. I apologize, guys, but I have to be first at
course.
everything.
Totally out of
course he is.
character.
Of
Really
course.
And
surprising.
Oh my God.
without
They're, like
without
stressful, like
giving it away.
texting us. He's like texting us jams from the next week, and I'm like, I'm so behind. It's
I know.
just, it's not
It's
right.
not fair.
My point for bringing it up is not to pat myself on the back. It is to say that is a transgressive tour where they change everything about themselves. And I get the sense around this point in time is where Trey is almost being like, okay, I can play really fast. We can play like aggressive. Is that the point? Like, and then they play this Tweezer Fest and it's like, okay, things happen in there that have never happened on stage before. They've probably only happened like playing sound checks or playing backstage. Like, how do we do that again? And how do we get better at doing that? And so you're starting to hear this like push and pull between the, dynamic fast fish that like just awes people during the early 90s and really fits like the zeitgeist of the time period, and this band that is going to become more textural, more experimental, more democratic as they move forward.
And what a risk to do that in your year of your biggest growth. I think
Right.
going back to what you were saying, Brian, that they were growing, but they were going to do it their own way. And I think it's so thrilling to hear them taking risks like this in a year when they had a lot more expectations and they have a big record label and a record, and you can hear them playing all these Hoist songs, but they don't want to play the same set every night. And so this is their way
Right.
around that. They're like, okay, we're playing a lot of these songs and we're playing them really fast and we're playing them perfectly, but like, yeah, where's our real magic? And it's walking this tightrope.
Yeah. Man, getting weird is it really pays off. You know, there's
Yeah.
another band that we like that released some music this week that is weird and great. The
So good.
getting weird is smart. You know.
Yeah. Especially if you're in a chateau.
Man, when your percussionist picks up a guitar, things just get fucking crazy.
Things get crazy.
Yeah. Let's go.
Okay, so just a couple. Let's do a couple don't miss shows or notable
Yeah.
shows.
Yes.
We've talked about.
I'm
several.
so excited about this part. I'm so
Okay,
excited.
I want to start. Our friend Scotty B's
Do it.
first show, I believe, was this show 4:15 at the Beacon Theater in New York. It's this to me is the first notable show of this tour of 1994. The first set has a hood, which was not super common, but really good hood. Second set with Giant Country Horns. And we talked about this a few weeks ago about like the New York City ascendance, and this is the last stop before MSG, you know. And then the Beacon Theater's
Wow.
3,000 capacity, but it's a really fun show. It like the horns. I love the horns. I think the 94 horns are even more like fun to listen to than the 91 horns because the songs are further along and they complement the jamming a little bit more. It's not just like a really tight horns show. There's a point at actually never mind, I'm not going to say that. Just listen to the It's Ice jam and see if it reminds you of anything you've heard recently. But a really good show, really fun. Megillah encore with the Giant Country Horns. Just it's so 94 and it feels so of the era, and it's really really fun show.
I just want to give that show, and I think also the entire run 413 14 15 to this point in time the band hadn't really played 3-night runs, and nowadays like 3-night runs are pretty much an afterthought. Like they just happen. 4-night runs happen all the time. Which note, I have an idea for our next series. Just put a pin in that. But it's, to me, like this tour starts in earnest with a 3-night run. There's shows before it, but like there's a 3-night run, and then it ends in earnest with a 3-night run at the Warfield. And those two runs really kind of showcase the band realizing what we've been talking about, that like you said it really well, RJ. Like you would go to like one of 3 shows and you'd see like 3 different shows, and if you went to the 4th, it's kind of a repeat. And the band is starting to learn that when they play multiple nights and then when they play a run, everyone's coming back for multiple shows, so you have to give them something completely different the next night. And what's the easiest way to do it? It's improv. Other quick note about 415, we interviewed Carl Gerhard for Undermine, and he talked about how he accidentally got out of a cab in front of the Beacon with his trumpet, and immediately Phish fans were like, "Horns tonight," and he was like, "Fuck, I ruined the surprise."
They didn't even have the internet and they still ruined it. Like, it's unbelievable.
They ruined it.
So great.
Megan, what do you got?
I love this 527 show from the Warfield. It's the third night, the Warfield, famous Grateful Dead venue. Incredible flow in the show. In the first set, you've got like dramatic thrashing Type 1 Bowie jam, fantastic version of Hood that Brian mentioned, with Mike just really setting the tone. Second set, I love how they rip into Susie and Peaches to open. And then this gorgeous version of Reba that I mentioned. They've got an acoustic section, and the band plays this super short mics that goes into the debut of Simple, which is definitely wild and unsettled. Talk about layered. They're doing so much under the riff. Like, it's really cool. If you haven't listened to that in a while, you listen to it and you realize like why this song became a monster jam vehicle, because it was super creative right in its debut and clearly just totally inspired the band. Then you have an opera singer that comes out during the Simple jam and sings an aria. And then they pass out macaroni and cheese boxes for everybody to shake during Possum and Fire.
Yeah.
It's got everything. It's like flow, excellent versions of classic songs, debut of a huge and important Phish song, hijinks, playfulness, audience participation. I absolutely love this show, and it's one of my favorites from this tour. Excuse me.
It was kind of a run. It was only 44 shows. It's like,
Yeah,
is it
just
really
a
a tour?
run.
Is it even a
really
tour?
I mean,
This was a tape. This is a tape you had to
gotta
have.
hit
Like
50.
this is besides the
Yeah.
Bomb Factory. This was on the list of like you gotta hear this because of all the reasons you said. Great show.
Yeah, amazing stuff. I'm just going to give another shout out to 424. If you haven't listened to 424 and you are an hour and 4 minutes in this podcast, I don't know what's going on. Like, please go and listen to that and then write to Kevin Shapiro and go, Kevin, why is this show not a live fish release? It's one of the most important fish shows that has ever happened in fish history. Have you heard the David Bowie? I know that you officially released it as a live bait, but like the whole show deserves a full release. What is going on here? Also 516. What is going on here? We need a 516 release. It's at the Wiltern. Like, Fish is not an LA band. They'd never really played incredible in LA outside of a few notable shows that we've talked about and we'll talk about in the future. But oh my
You're
god,
very close. You're very close to Christopher Walken territory, Brian.
just a little bit. It's a little bit of a bit.
Close. It's really great. We can get into that more.
I also think that they should release a Warfield box. That is an amazing
that'd
3-night
be
run.
so sick. Yes, and I
With
also
a
think you
macaroni
have
and
to
cheese
have-
design.
I mean,
That's it.
done,
That's it.
done.
Fish.
And you have to
Great
have
idea.
that too, because do you know that there's not one single Reba released from spring 1994?
That is
crazy.
offensive.
There's only 4 from the whole year. There's only 4 Rebas from the whole year, and not one of them is from spring 94. So 527 Warfield has to be a release too.
Yeah,
That is-
the fact
is
there's only
offensive.
one is like it's insane.
It's a little weird. Yeah.
Despite what we
weird.
said earlier about the fact that they're all kind of similar set lists, don't listen to us about that. Just listen to us about how there are amazing shows.
Well, like we said,
Well-
there are islands of this tour. And so if you are
Exactly.
not a complete crazy person like we are, you are not going to listen to this whole tour. Most people will not, and that's understandable. You have lots of things to do, and you now have other jam bands playing from chateaus that you have to listen to as well. By the way, chateau jams count for the bracket. Okay, we're going to put that in the podcast.
I don't
Oh
think
my
it's real. I
god,
don't think
hot
that's
takes!
real.
Oh, like all the time.
I
Hot
don't think
takes.
that's real. All right, I have one more. Do you
Was there
guys have
anybody
one
on
more?
the Chateau
No,
watching?
you
That's
you
all
go,
need to
you go.
know. You go.
Well, actually, oh shit. I was gonna say 516. I just looked at my notes and I was like, damn.
Just say more about it.
Great. Okay.
Say more about it.
I think the only thing I would say is that the Antelope, Big Black Furry Creatures from Mars Antelope, has some really interesting playing that's like more melodic, hypnotic. It's not just the intensity. I think that's like what we start to see in this tour. You start to hear things that aren't just the straightforward like tension release, high intensity
Yeah.
jams. I think you're starting to hear this more melodic kind of jamming, which is really great. And I guess I could come up with another one, but do you have one, Megan?
No, mine were 424 and 527. I
Okay.
love that 424 show.
I do think that 4-8 is pretty good, which is Penn State. There's a lot going on there. This second set's pretty crazy. You get Melt, McGrupp, It's Ice, Digital Delay Loop Jam. First ever Digital Delay Loop Jam, which will make a reappearance
Wow.
in the greatest piece of fish improv of all time later this year. And it's a really like cool set. And I was wondering, so this is a 6,500 or so capacity venue, which is pretty big for them at the time at Penn State. And it feels like they're kind of breaking out of the Northeast and kind of expanding a little bit. But, to have like a weird split open and Melt, set 2 opener, Digital Delay Loop Jam in the middle of It's Ice, and then like a really, really good Bowie. And it's just a fun show, fun listen. I don't know. I feel like we always ascribe things to the band. Like, well, they moved out of the Northeast and then things like kind of got more, expensive. I don't think that's really true, but
What's this? But definitely not here. I mean, they play Big Ball Jam, which, and then the encore is Contact into Big Black Furry Creature from Mars. Like,
Yeah,
they're not trying to
yeah.
win over fans here by playing the hits. This is like some deep shit. This is really good. The show's really fun. That It's Ice is wild and careening. It's just so exciting to listen to.
It really is. It really is. I just want to put Brian Tompkins' comment up here. Just we're only going to mention this band Reprise one more time because Brian, to be fair, Brian Tompkins has made several comments about how awesome they are. 7/16/94 is one of the shows they covered. They captured the intensity of 94 for sure, and some of the kind of stretched out improv. That was anyway really fun. I guess is there anything else we need to say? Is there anything that we didn't address? I feel like we talked about almost everything. Maybe we didn't spend enough time on a lot of really amazing stashes from this tour, but that kind of fits in with everything we talked about. Is there anything else left to say? And if not, what is your takeaway from spring 1994?
The only stash I will bring up is the 4/9 Binghamton stash. That is definitely a stash that people should listen to. It's demented and weird and awesome. So I would definitely listen to that. Brian, did you have anything else before our last takeaways?
No, I've just got takeaways now.
Go for it. Please take us away.
So I said this at the top, but I think it's worth reinforcing. This to me is the double back to Fish of 89-92. They're noticeably tighter from the jump and less jammy than Summer 93, but that changes midway through and begins to take over Fish. And for the next decade, this will be the push and pull of who this band is. Like what they discover at the Bomb Factory is what we are going to hear going forward. And so this is kind of that one last stint in AAA ball where you're playing at wacky little stadiums in front of kind of sparse to then a packed crowd. And you've got like, the variety show feel where you've got to hit all your marks, but you're realizing that the music is the reason why people are going to keep coming back in bigger and bigger and bigger numbers. And as the internet takes over, people are going to use this space. One of the early websites is going to be a Fish website to talk about what this band is like. And that in a lot of ways starts on 5/7.
Yeah, I think my takeaway is the same. This metaphor of the minor leagues. This is their last year of that. This is the time to practice, get stronger, build stamina, and also the last time they can take really big risks in small rooms in the US. They're never going to go back to them. They're going to have to go to Europe to get small rooms again. So this is it. Starting next year, it's amphitheaters, arenas, and the world's most famous arenas. Festivals are coming up. This is it for them. After this, they are what they are forever on, and they're doing it their way and leaning into risk. And it's so exciting. And I can't wait to talk about the 2 other tours from this year.
Yeah. You guys kind of said it all. I guess the only thing I would say is that I think we start to see more jam vehicles kind of emerging during this time. Like some of the stash jams, like some of the It's Ice jams, the Split Open and Melts, which had been getting out there, but you start to see like more and more. I think the 92 tour that we did, which is it's only 2 years in between spring 92 and spring 94,
That's
but it feels like a different world,
right?
doesn't it? It feels like a different band.
Yes.
Like
yes, it is.
I don't know. It is. And you're not just getting a David Bowie or Antelope jam. You're getting some of these other songs that are starting to stretch out. Even in one of the shows that you talked about, didn't the Horn have like a little outro jam from 5/16 or no, not 5/16. Whatever one you were talking about where Horn was second. Maybe that was it. Yeah, maybe it's
the Bomb Factory. Yeah.
There's like these little pieces of improv and I do think the Tweezer Fest kind of helped give way for some of those songs to start stretching out, which is cool.
Everything can be jammed.
Everything can be jammed.
They're starting to learn that.
Even HF Pod.
Even HF Pod.
Yeah. Even I can come live from the Bomb Factory. Just anything can happen.
God, this is so great. Okay, so guys, we have to go because we have to, get ready for the next one, which will be
catch up to fucking Brian. Listen to next week's fucking music.
Brian, do you want to tell people what the tour is and how? Well, just tell people what the tour is, because if they voted in the way that it's reflected on our poll, then people might be surprised.
This is, I think, our most stark break from the audience vote. I believe so. I will run those numbers
I think
before our
so.
next episode. This is an incredibly important tour. Just going to put that out there. We love this tour. This tour is awesome. But I think it was a bit overranked in the audience vote for a few reasons that we're going to get into next week. It is Summer Europe 97. An amazing tour. Some insane, life-changing fish. Like, I'm sure that they wrote Life-Saving Gun about this period in their history. Like there is no fish today without them being like, hey, let's completely reinvent everything about ourselves. Amazing tour. It is our number 21 tour of the overall list. We'll get into that.
And I just want to say for the record, when we drafted, the three of us went through and drafted this list. I wanted this higher, and I just want that known. I want the audience to know that, and I just want it to be known. And
We
get
all
into it
wanted
next
something
week.
higher. We all have that tour.
Yeah,
Just wait.
probably true.
Love that. I love that. Okay. Well, the only thing I want to say in previewing next week is that you have 19 shows in this tour we're going to talk about. 6 of them are one set festival shows. So we're really talking about 13 shows here. So that's
Wow.
not like, I just think that should be noted.
It should definitely be noted, and as we will get into, a lot of the good and great stuff is concentrated,
Mhm.
which
Some
I
really
think is
Fair.
part of our reasoning.
amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Okay,
You
I think
guys.
we're gonna wrap it. Megan, what else do you have to say before we wrap up?
This is Megan from the Bomb Factory. Thanks for watching.